Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable, my advisor, Memria Anggraini SPD and Home. The Honorable, my examiners. The first, let me introduce myself. My name is Lutfi Masnur. I am English student of Muhammadiyah University of Bengkulu on 8th semester. And now I will to do presentation with my proposal in seminar proposal examination online. And my research title is an analysis of interactive meta-discourse markers used by author in the short story of the Jakarta Post. And now I will explain about the chapter 1. This chapter will present about the question, background, limitation, objectives, significances, and key term of the definitions. The first is background. Literature is anything written form that make to express minds or ideas based on imagination. And when written something, it has can claim as literature. The form of the literature is not complicated. In the literature, there are several results such as poetry, prose, and then short story. And now we are going to talking about short story. What is short story? Short story is the result of the literature as well as a place for the writer to express their minds, and a short story made based on imagination or directly life experience from the writer. So that's why the content of the short story have a natural style inside it, and also writer not just write but also try to tell the reader about that there is something in the short story. So that's why short story, but short story not only as a literature but also has the facilities to every people to express something that they want. Furthermore, each writer to do communication with their readers by writing a few words that actually are a marker of writing to do communication with the readers. This marker will make the writing from the writers be clearly when seen by the readers. These markers can we call as meta-discourse markers. What is meta-discourse markers? Meta-discourse markers is a new written style form in discourse where the writers to position themselves in their writing so that can able to make communication with their readers. In to-do conversations, the readers choose by appropriately exactly the markers of meta-discourse. And when the writers wrong to place their meta-discourse markers, it will make the mistake or misunderstanding in their writing. Exactly when the writers want to do communication with the readers. If that thing happen, the readers can know about the characterization, about the arguments, about the attitudes from them, and the readers can make conclusion how the characterization or the anything self about the reader, about the writers. So from the reasons before, the researcher know how the important about the meta-discourse markers, and he interested to analyze about that, and he conduct the research title entitled An Analysis of Interactive Meta-Discourse Markers used by author in the short story of the Jakarta Post. Okay, now I will tell about the research question section. In this research, there are two research questions that shall be answered. The first is what is all type of interactive meta-discourse markers used by author in the story of the Jakarta Post, and the second is what is the dominant of interactive meta-discourse markers that used by the author in the story of the Jakarta Post. Now I will tell about the objectives of this research. The first is to know all types of interactive meta-discourse that used by the author of the Jakarta Post, and then the second is to know the dominant type of interactive meta-discourse markers that used by the author in the story of the Jakarta Post. The next is what is the significances from this research. There are two significances from this research. The first is for the students. It hopefully help them to know about what is interactive meta-discourse markers that can they use when they want to writing something. And then for the lecturer, what is the significance? It hopefully can help lecturer to get information about the author, what is the dominant or what is the author use about the interactive meta-discourse markers. And then about the limitation from this research. From this research, the researcher focused to analyze about the interactive meta-discourse markers that used by the author in the story of the Jakarta Post. Okay, now I will explain about the key terms of the definition. The first is literature. Literature is a written style form that make to express minds or ideas based on imagination. And then the second is the short story. Short story is the latest work as well as a place for the writers to express their imagination or their ideas. And then the third is about definition meta-discourse. Meta-discourse is a new writing style in discourse analysis that where the writers position themselves so that can make communication with their readers. Now I will explain about the chapter 2. This chapter will present about the theories and then about the previous studies that related with this from this research. Okay, now I will explain about the theories in the literature. The first is from Smith in 2001, said that literature is the only part of the educational curriculum that deals directly with the actual world of the life experience. And then from the Pradhan in 2019, page 30, explained that literature is a form artistic creation, and as such it is a criticism and an idealization life. Okay, now I will explain about the theory in the short story. The first is from Clarer in 2004, page 12, mentioned that short story, a concise form of prose fictions, has received less attention from literary scholars than the novel. And then from the Mahdi in 2014, page 73, said that literature can be anything the author decides its hobby. Okay, I will explain about the theory in the meta-discourse. The first theory from the Hillen in 2005, page 1, asserts that meta-discourse is a widely used term in current discourse analysis and language education, referring to an interesting and relatively new approach to conceptualizing interaction between text producers and their text, and between text producers and users. And then the second theorist from the Mahdi in 2070, page 73, say that literature can be anything the author shall be. Okay, now I will explain about the previous studies that relate with this research. The first is from Eda Duruk in 2017 with the research title is an analysis of meta-discourse markers used in academic written discourse produced by Turkish researchers. And then the second is from Sebzi Triwendi in 2017 and the research title is an analysis of meta-discourse markers used by the English Language Education Study Program student Muhammadiyah University of Bengkulu in descriptive text. And then the last is the from the Mirna Dwi Efrianti in 2019 with the research title is an analysis of interpersonal meta-discourse used by speech of Minister for Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. Okay, now for the last section in the chapter 3 I will explain about the methodology. This chapter will present about the research design, objective of the research, and then about the instrumentation, and then about the data analyzing technique, and then the data collection technique. The first is about the research design. In this research, the research design is descriptive qualitative method that will be explained about the interactive meta-discourse in the short story of the Jakarta Post. The second is about the objects of the research. The object of the research are the short stories from the Jonathan Jitans that have published in website Jakarta Post since 2017 until 2019. Now the third about the instrumentation of this research. The instrumentation of this research are two. The first is documentation of the short story by Jonathan Jitan, and the second is the table of analysis of interactive meta-discourse based on Helen's theories in 2005, page 49. The fourth is about the technique, the collecting data. How the research collect the data. The research collect the data from the website on the Jakarta Post with the get the document of the short stories by Jonathan Jitan. For the last is about the data analyzing technique. The first step is the researcher read all of the data that have the researcher collect, and the second is the researcher classifying some or all type that have the researcher get, and can the researcher put into the table of analysis. And the third is the researcher describe all of the type of the meta-discourse and then interpret all of the interactive meta-discourse that have analyzed. Okay, I think enough for my presentation. If I do the mistake, please forgive me. To Allah I say sorry. The last I say, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.